He's the voiceover studio engineer of the Stars in Los Angeles, California, a Virginia Tech grad with a knowledge of recording studios unmatched in his field. He's a voice actor from Buffalo, New York, with 30 years experience in recording studios and behind the mic. He solves people's home voiceover studio problems in the blink of an eye. Together, there's no studio problem they can't solve, and they'll do it for you tonight. Welcome to East West Audio Body Shop. Now, live from a basement in Buffalo and an office in LA, here are Dan Leonard and George Whittam.
And good evening. I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
I'm George Whittam in the West.
And together we are East West Audio Body Shop. Well, what a week it's been. Now, I know you've had a busy week. Why don't you tell us about all the stuff that you've been doing as far as, you know, all the construction you're doing. Of course, perhaps we should talk about who our guest is tonight, too.
Yeah, let's get that in.
Yeah. Now, we were supposed to have Larry Davis, even though you said we were going to have Larry David on in our promo.
No, I saw that on the YouTube link. I was like, Well, I thought maybe that would bring more viewers. 11 viewers. It worked. People really do hate Larry David.
Maybe he would be in here. Maybe he wouldn't. No, but Larry Davis, who does some great voices, was going to be our guest tonight. But unfortunately, he has the flu. So we dug deep to find the deepest in quality of backup guests. And we got Peter O'Connell, our good friend from actually here in Buffalo, who has lots of interesting sidelights in his voiceover business that he wants to talk about. Yeah. And just shoot the bull with us here on East West Audio Body Shop. So he'll be joining us in just a little while. But I've got some great stuff that went on this week. And what have you been up to? It sounds like you've had a major construction job. I
have. I had a client who decided that we had a 3-week time window to do a complete studio construction job, a total room in a room build. I mean, just double walls, double ceilings, air conditioning, you know, everything you need for a studio in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So that pretty well, you know, had me going. And I was there yesterday installing. I was there Friday installing acoustics, Saturday installing all the equipment. About 3:30, Fox called him and said, "We need you in a half hour." And he was like, "Oh my, these guys call me like 4 times a year on a Saturday. It has to be the day that I move the studio." And we got it up and running just in time for him to pull the session off. And I even got a little validation directly from the Fox engineer saying that it sounded great. So that felt pretty good. But go back on Monday to finish the acoustics and put the spit shine on the place. But it came out really well. I'll have pictures up on the Google Plus feed and, you know,
excellent,
pretty soon.
See, that's the fun part of your job. It's like having a baby. You know, you get to, you know, I mean, we've all experienced, well, most of us have experienced it. Maybe you and I personally haven't experienced, but we've seen it happen.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, it really is kind of nice to, you know, to bring a project like that to fruition and to see it work really, really well.
It really is. I mean, it's the ultimate in, you know, I don't have my own studio. So every time I build one, it's like I get to build the studio I would have built if I had that money to do it. If I had the money and the space and the need, this is the studio I would build. So I get to build one of those every couple of months. And actually I'm building 2 simultaneously, but every couple of months I get something like that. And it's so satisfying to see the client go, wow, this is really what I was hoping it would be. And, you know, have everybody be excited, thrilled, and, you know, feeling validated after spending, you know, an ungodly amount of money.
An ungodly amount of someone else's money.
Yeah. Not my money. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's always the fun part about
this.
But
believe me, I don't. When I design a studio, it's to fit the need of the client. So whether it's, you know, a guy that does promo like this fella, or you're just getting started, you know, it doesn't matter. But if the client, you have to work at the level that the client demands, whatever that is. That's the most important thing. Anybody knows about pricing a project, or you should know, pricing a product or a project is all about meeting the expectation of the client. If you're way high or if you're way low, you will miss the mark.
This is really important. Yeah, that might be a good topic for a discussion one of these weeks, talking about, you know, Corvo is always talking about, our good friend Dave Quavasia is always talking about, you know, proper pricing for your own work. And in the voiceover business, you know, anything goes, but you know, everybody's got their own formula for doing it. Sure. Well, I had a fascinating week.
What did you do, Dan?
Well,
Or what happened to you?
Remember, last Sunday, when we had James and Penny on, I was going like this the whole night. Maybe people noticed that it was just a tad itchy. Well, come Monday morning, it got a little bit worse, and I tried Benadryl, I tried Zyrtec, I tried Cordaid, and it didn't go away. And then I remembered, right before the football game, I'm a devoted Bills fan. Even today, last Sunday morning, I felt something like something was crawling up my neck and then going across the top of my head, and it was itchy, and then it sort of went into my eyebrow. So, and of course, my wife goes off to Florida to visit her parents on Sunday, and she's going to be gone for 5 days. And then I'm sitting there eating breakfast, and it suddenly strikes me, because I used to sell insurance and I used to know all sorts of medical stuff. I'm like, I wonder if it's shingles. So I pick up the phone, call my good friend who's a dermatologist, and he said, "Yeah, oh, you think you got shingles? Come on in." And he takes one look at it, and he's like, "Yeah, you're right.
That'll be $150."
Well, I don't care. My insurance pays for that. But he's like, because you figured out what it was, because you understood the progression of it, of a retrovirus going down a nerve route,
mm-hmm.
obviously affected my speaking ability. Yeah. Because you caught it early, we can give you antiviral drugs, and chances are it will not get even very bad at all. Like classic shingles, which is really nasty. And it'll go away, and you won't, and it won't come back in most cases. So I was kind of.
It's time for another exciting episode of Dad Audio of the Week.
My eye was. I'm telling my son, watch if my eye starts to droop. If that happens, let me know, because I won't even be able to tell. This thing is a weird virus. Anyway, but in the middle of the week, it's like, I've got work to do. I'm going to go take a nap. And that was pretty much the way the week went.
Yeah, that's part of being self-employed, right? You can't collect unemployment. You can't go on sick leave.
No, and I had a lot of work to do, and I got it all done, and so it was pretty good. And I had this amazing creative streak. Maybe it's like, after staring death, down the hall several times in the last couple of years, I'm like, wait, I got a great idea. So I had a lot of creative output this week, and I'm sure some of you will see it later on in the show.
Cool.
But I survived that, and everybody's going, God, this is really dull conversation.
We're glad you didn't get the serious form of shingles, mainly so we didn't have to hear the story. But
right, because otherwise, what you're watching right now is that
exactly.
But no, I'm here. But we've got some other great stuff coming up tonight. We've got a couple of great questions about whisper rooms and whether you should stand or sit. We also have a little feature tonight later on, because people have been inquiring, how do you do this show? I mean, what is the secret? How do you make this look so good when in reality we are using 2 cans and a string? Mm-hmm. It's pretty impressive. But anyway, one of the questions we got this week was about whisper rooms. I can't remember exactly what the question was, but everybody's always talking about how a whisper room is the ultimate answer. And Peter O'Connell is seeing here like, whisper room in here? It's not happening.
Right.
I'm not a believer in whisper rooms for home studios unless you're Ed Victor, who had posted a video this week about his double-walled whisper room.
Right.
But
the enhanced one.
An enhanced booth.
Should I give him a little rundown about the kind of differences, why you spend more for one than the other?
As long as it's interesting.
Okay. Well, it all started with the need for a booth. The reason that they make 2 versions, and one is much more expensive than the other. I think it's actually almost more than twice as expensive. I think it's at least double, because the enhanced model is actually a booth in a booth. So you build the outer one, and then they give you another whole section of walls, floors, and everything, and you build another one inside the first one. So that's why it's that much more. Even the window and the door, everything is doubled. The amazing thing is, even though it's double the cost, double the weight, double the materials, double everything. It does not have double the soundproofing. And that's just one of those things, like the law of diminishing returns. You know, you do so much with this much money and this much effort, then you can get to this stage, then you can get to this stage, then you can get to this. You know, that's how it goes. And I actually had a little slight tangent, but I had to get in a conversation with my client just this past weekend because his wife was expecting that, after you spend all this money, this thing should be, the equivalent of a bomb shelter or something as though you're 300 feet underground. And I was like,
Saddam Hussein would have felt safe.
I was like, yeah, no. I was like, maybe we didn't meet your expectations here, but within the time limits and budgetary constraints of this project and building on the second story of a building, all these different factors, we couldn't do what you were expecting. But we got about 90% of the way there, I think. And once they saw that and understood it and kind of swallowed that, it was okay. But anyway, same thing with a Whisper Room. You buy this thing, it isn't soundproof. There's nothing truly soundproof completely. So the enhanced booth has the double wall. It gives you, like, depending on what frequency range, as you go down in the lower frequency, down in the lower mid-range and low bass, mid-bass frequencies, which is where most of the voice is, the double wall does a much better job at stopping noise from coming in, which is that really critical range. So if you're in a really noisy part of town, if you're stuck in Los Angeles, New York City, you're off of a major boulevard, and you really have to be able to work at any time, day or night. You don't get to screw around.
Yeah, really.
That's the reality. That's the reality for a lot of people here in LA. Then sometimes it's necessary to go to that level. But I'll let Dan take over on his thoughts again. But the last thing about Whisper Room is it does have a resale value. So at least, if you move or you do get to upgrade to a custom built booth, or, you just get out of the business, whatever, it does have a resale value. So, you can turn around and sell this thing again. Whereas if you had something custom made from, a DAW box plans or something, it's a big pile of, kindling and scrap wood when you're done. It's like building a set,
Yeah, and you've got to be handy. I talk to a lot of people who are like, my husband is building me a Whisper Room. Like, no, he's building you a room, essentially.
Box, yeah.
I know Peach Traquerta built a really nice one, and he used excessive amounts of green glue, which apparently was very successful. I personally, when it comes to Whisper Rooms, I don't believe in them. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe that's just my personal preference because of how I'm located. I am in the landing pattern from the Buffalo airport, but it's they've got their noise abatement stuff on. I really don't notice.
Basement.
I'm below grade. For those of you in California,
ain't got none of those out here.
We take these shovels and we dig these big holes under our house, and it's like, I'm somewhat below grade, but I can still hear stuff on the outside.
Sure.
The dogs barking, or if they're mowing the lawn this time of year, leaf blowers and things like that. Yeah. You're going to hear it. But so what I've tried to do down here is I've tried to get my noise floor down to at least minus 50 dB, and I succeed at that most of the time, unless somebody comes to the door and both the dogs start barking for whatever reason, or somebody is mowing the lawn, and even then it's still pretty good. But I still have an open area. I find that Whisper Rooms create the sound of you being in a Whisper Room, and that sound is something like this, where you sound like you're in a booth, and there are ways to try and treat for that. Putting in bass. Everybody talks about, put in bass traps, put in this, put in that. Yeah. The answer is, most of the time when somebody has too much of a problem with their Whisper Room, I say, open the door.
Right.
And that usually, and all the little bass frequencies just sort of float out, and that's the end of it.
That's
and
true.
They're like,
but then if you could open the door, you wouldn't need a Whisper Room.
Bingo.
That's the irony.
Exactly. But you can't build one on your own. It's a lot of work. You got to be very project oriented, and really, you just want to think about how it is that you how you do your performance, because the Whisper Room it's a crutch. If you understand how to record, if you know how to keep your noise floor down initially, dampening your refrigerator, making sure your furnace is off, remembering to turn it back on when you're done, things along those lines. There are ways to get rid of background noise, and if you get it below -50, no one's going to notice anyway. So that's my take on whisper rooms. So whatever the question was, hopefully we answered it.
I've been in the chat room too while you've been blabbing on.
What are some of the people saying here?
The topic of doll bugs came up, and I made a pointed comment of saying that they're a joke. That's probably a little strong. The doll, saying that they're a joke, but I have had a lot of people complain about those doll box plans because they leave a lot of details out. They give you the impression of having a lot of detail. And then when you get to that point where you have to make a precise cut or some kind of precise, something adjustment, it's like, well, you just sort of have to kind of figure it out. Yeah, it's exactly as Matt said. So many details are left out. So it's almost like, to me, it's like, even if you're going to sell the plans for cheap, you got to make sure that they're good, because if they're not good, you might as well, I don't know, you might as well not do it. I mean, you
can just come down here into my basement. Yeah.
I've had people ask me to make plans for them, and I'm like, do you have any idea how much time it would take me to
how much you're going to charge him to do those plans?
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars, because it's going to take me hundreds.
Man, you're cheap for doing that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, it would be incredibly time consuming to design something that someone could build like they're building, something out of Legos. Put this block here and insert tab. Yeah, that's IKEA furniture. And if IKEA ever makes a whisper room or some kind of a ISO booth,
and then you got something.
Yeah,
exactly.
So they out of the box, I feel they need quite a bit of improvement for voiceover. They really do need acoustic treatment. So they are not the end all be all. And I talk a lot of people out of getting as many people as I talk about buying one, I talk others out of getting one. Because there's so many situations where you if you're not, especially here's a really good delineation. If you do all of your work self-directed, where you can stop and start, you can work at any time, day or night, doesn't matter, you're totally flexible. That's one good reason why you don't need a whisper room, probably. Right. Because you have the time, flexibility to work around these kinds of interruptions. But if you're working on a really rigid schedule, you're called at certain times a day, you work with radio station affiliates, I don't know, whatever it is.
Right.
That's a different story. But hopefully you're getting paid adequately enough to make it worth the investment at that point.
Absolutely.
So,
all right. Well, we're rolling on here, but this is a topic everybody likes to talk about. We've got another question about standing or sitting, and then the little thing about how do we actually do the show here. We're going to get to that in just a couple of minutes. Also, if you have a question for us, of course, you can write to us at ewebshop@gmail.com. We love to get your questions like this about whisper rooms and stuff, or you can call our number. And what's the number there, George?
It's 818-47-EWABS. That's 473-9227.
And the number in Labrador is okay. Labrador. Anyway, hey, they're a half hour. What?
Mr. Social Studies, man. I love it. You always pull out these locations. I'm like, where the heck is that?
Places like Swaziland,
Yeah.
That's what my father always pulled on me. You know where Swaziland is? Where the hell is Swaziland? It's surrounded by South Africa. Anyway,
look it up.
I know I'm right. Anyway, so we'll be back in just a minute, and we'll talk about standing or sitting. So stay right here. We'll be right back.
VoiceOver Extra, the voiceover industry's online news, education, and resource center 24/7. Hundreds, probably thousands of free how-to articles for voiceover success, ranging from home studio to voice acting to business. A free voiceover industry directory, calendar of industry events, resource links, a store, and much more. Bi-monthly webinars on all topics of voiceover, free subscriptions to newsletters, reports, announcements, daily news, and features at voiceoverextra.com. VoiceOver Extra.
Oh gosh, if you only knew what went on during the bumpers here at East West Audio Body Shop. We have a great time here.
Sorry, guys.
You guys are having a great time in the chat room, and we're having a great time here. And Peter O'Connell will be joining us in just a little while, and we'll just make fun of him for like 15, 20 minutes.
Good luck.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And he's actually going to be live in studio. You know, you get all the big stars in Hollywood. I get the big Buffalo stars here.
And how do we know he's not already sitting right next to you, Dan?
Well, he's here.
I hear him laughing in the background.
Whoa. Okay, this is turning into a college level podcast.
Yeah, there it goes.
Okay. All right. Anyway, we had a question about, I can't remember who asked it. Maybe we should just take better notes on who sends us these notes. But
I can tell you.
Do you stand or do you sit?
Dave Waters.
It was Dave. That's right. Dave
He said,
asked.
so which is it? Stand up or sit down? You see a lot of voice actors standing up in studios, but you also see many top actors sitting in their home studios, like George DeHoyo, Ben Patrick Johnson, Joseph. I do a little of each, depending on the project. I think he answered his own question, but we'll elaborate.
He did. All right. Well, let's do an actual visual aid here. Why don't we? And this is when I actually move the camera a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah, let's see if I can see what's going on. No. Okay, here we are in the black hole of Calcutta. And here's my microphone, and here's how I read my material. I generally do. Can you hear me okay in there?
Yeah, we still hear you fine.
Oh, okay. All right. Generally, I do most of my work standing up. Why is that? With a lot of people, it was like people who had to wear headphones. It's a habit. It's how my first job in radio, we stood, and because we were announcers, so
right.
It can cause a bit of a problem. But I generally will stand because I got my copy right here. You know, I'll be working at my screen over here, and I turn around. My mic is right here, and I can talk. And I've learned it gives me room to move my arms. I am an actor, not an engineer, and I'm not on the radio. So it gives me the freedom to really, to do the ballet that I do while I'm working. Now, if I was sitting, now if you're sitting, sometimes it helps to be. Let me just straighten the camera out a little bit here. That a better shot?
Amazing.
All right. Okay.
Perfecto.
Thank you. 3/4 rule. When I'm sitting, if you're sitting and you're reading copy, sometimes I find that it can be much more relaxing to do it that way. Sometimes I'm thinking like, all right, so it's like, all right, like say the copy is like you're a guy you'd like to have a beer with. So you think there go, all right, if I'm sitting in a bar and I'm talking to somebody about something like that, have you ever had hemorrhoids? Something along those lines. And it's how you sound real. I mean, you can do it sitting down, and really depends on a couple of factors. It depends on what's the mood of the spot, what are the specs, something along those lines. And also it depends on the acoustics in your studio, because the acoustics at my mic back here are dead silent. There's no reflection in there at all. Maybe it's a little too dead, but you can always change that using a number of different methods, but I generally don't.
It's better to be too dead than a little too bouncy.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now it's fairly lively over here. If I had my screen, my computer screen is right here. It's over here where my hand is, and so I could do my work, staring at my screen, but it sounds different. There's a hard surface here called an iMac, and it tends to bounce off of that. So I'm generally pretty careful about not doing that. It's just I get up, I do it. I've learned how to relax when I stand up. Sometimes when you stand up, it tends to support your diaphragm a little bit more, and you tend to get a little louder. There's that. I must have some, something in my DNA says talk a little bit louder.
I have a few theories on why people stand or sit. One, they stand because there's obvious benefits to standing. We definitely agree on that. Acting is mostly done standing. It's just there's a reason for that. But For sitting, I think there's two big reasons why people do it. And one is because I think a lot of people that sit do it because they came from radio.
Yeah.
And I know you came from radio too, but you had a lot of distance between your radio career and your voice career, I think. It seems that a lot of those people came from radio and they have the years of practice, training, just doing it, that they can pretty much do what they need to do sitting. I think it's just practice. The other thing is if it's really long copy, man, long form stuff, really long form narration can be tiring. Now you do a lot of long form narration, but you still do it standing, right, Dan?
I did the entire Bible standing.
Yeah.
So you know, not all at once, thank God.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I mean, you know, a lot of people will sit when it's very long form, but I guess you could also sit if you're doing something that needs to sound like you're sitting. I mean, where you're like extremely relaxed. You know, it could be, you could use it as sort of a way to enhance your acting technique, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I do it. I've learned through all the coaching that I've had that you're an actor, get into it, get into the role. You know, you're doing The Godfather. You got to get into the character a little bit.
Use your hands. You know, it's all part of the. It's all part of it.
Yeah, of course. Then you hear whoosh, whoosh, bang as you're hitting the side of the thing there. Anyway,
well, I know the big caveat of sitting down, besides if you don't know how to do it properly, is the microphone on the desk. When the mic is sitting on a desktop stand, it often will pick up all sorts of vibrations. So you got to deal with that. It picks up, you get that reflection off the top of the desk surface into the microphone. Absolutely. Or off the computer monitor. So, you know, if you're working real close proximity to computer monitors or a desk, you almost always need to use like a dynamic mic, something that's really tight pattern, or like a shotgun mic. But I rarely find a situation where you can use a nice, rich sounding, studio condenser right down over top of a desk in front of a screen. It's really difficult.
I had a client that I was working with last week, and he was having a real bad buzzing problem, but we solved that with a new mic cable. And then it still sounded kind of boothy. I said, "Are you on a hard surface?" And he sent me some pictures of it. I'm like, son of a gun, he had it sitting on a desk stand on this desk.
Sure.
I said, "Get it off the desk, get a boom, get it above there." Suddenly his little closet sounded better than Ed Victor's whisper room. So
it's amazing, isn't it?
And it totally changed the way that worked.
Yeah.
Okay, now we had another question this week. Have you got this package ready for everybody here?
I believe that I do.
Okay, well, we had a question. How do we do East West Audio Body Shop? It's a very sophisticated and high-tech show that we do here. So, next week I think maybe we'll show how you do it from your end, but let's show how it happens from the East Coast on East West Audio Body Shop.
Here we go.
Well, I'm working on the East West Audio Body Shop. So, well, actually, none of this is really real. We're just using computer-generated technology to make it seem like he's actually alive by making him move and speak. And the way he speaks, we use a real-time voice synthesizer. So we'll make him say something like, "Hi, I'm Dan Leonard in the East."
Hi, I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
There we go. That's how it works here. Oh, the hardest part was definitely making the mustache.
That's brilliant, man.
Yeah, well,
it takes a lot of work to pull off this show. I mean, how much do we have to pay? We have to pay your son in popcorn and
popcorn, bird seed. You'll notice that his bird is with him all the time, Conrad the conure. And I mean, the kid's down here all the time. I figure, might as well put him to work. You got homework? No. Okay, I'm putting you to work. So anyway,
great job.
That's how it's done here in the East.
No, we'll try to. We'll feed you little bits here and there, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into. No matter how silly the show is and how haphazard it can seem at times, there's a lot of bits and pieces behind the scene to make this work. Which I probably 2 months of experimenting and researching here and on and off to try to make this show seamless as possible. Which we've pretty much got it after this is episode 23. So
23.
we're starting to get there now. But just stay tuned. We'll start giving you guys a little more detail over time as to
just a little bit.
Yeah, little bits here and there, little bits here and there. We don't want to bore everybody or go into too much, but just know that all the audio is being mixed in a real, honest to goodness mixing console. It's not in some software thingy. It's a real board with sliders. It's, to me, it's the only way to do it and make myself sane. So that's a big part of it.
That's right. Well, that's right. Anyway, well, we're going to take another break here. And when we return, one of our best buddies is going to be in our show tonight. Peter O'Connell will be joining us live here in the Black Hole of Calcutta, here on East West Audio Body Shop. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
VoiceOver Industries online news, education, and resource center 24/7. Hundreds, probably thousands of free how-to articles for voiceover success, ranging from home studio to voice acting to business. A free voiceover industry directory.
Hi, yeah, it's me, the home studio master. There's no question that if you're new to having a home studio, it seems like an overwhelming amount of stuff to learn. Where do you put your studio? How do you set it up? And even more challenging, how do you use it? Well, here's a good place to start. Starting November 3rd, join me for a series of 3 fun webinars. Home Studio Basics 101, 102, and 103. Home Studio 101 on Thursday, November 3rd, we'll talk about bare bones basics, what you really need. In Home Studio 102 on Thursday, November 17th, we'll talk about how acoustics is everything. Almost. And with Home Studio 103 on Thursday, December 1st, we'll talk about basic recording and editing. Each webinar is just $29.95, but you can join the entire series, which includes recordings, for just $79.85, which will save you $10. During these webinars, we'll dispel common myths, talk about how 90% of your home studio sound has to do with acoustics, learn what's really happening when you record audio on your computer, and the factors that can cause problems. That's Home Studio Basics 101, 102, and 103. Live Wednesday, November 3rd and 17th, and Wednesday, December 1st, all at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. To register, go to... But it isn't always perfect. Anyway, if you want to go to the webinar, go to voiceoverextra.com with an X, not with the E. And there's a link there that'll get you to
It'll be in the show notes too. Thanks.
And it shall be in the show notes.
Yeah, thanks to Eric.
Right. Anyway, we got a special guest with us tonight, and he's one of those guys that, there are places where they have gatherings of voiceover folks, cities where there are people get together. Up in Toronto, we have our friends. They get together every other month. Well, my next guest and I have our own little thing. We get together for coffee once every 2 years. And but I'd like to invite him in to the East West Audio Body studio here. Just pick the chair up and just...
I don't want to break anything.
No, that's okay.
It's kind of tight in here.
It's been broken before. All right. Let's get a little bit deeper in here. God, this is like the stateroom scene in the Monkey Business.
Don't knock that over for the love of God. Jeez. Groucho Marx movie here.
All right. Okay. All right, see if you can slip yourself.
Wouldn't it just be better if I sat on your lap? Yeah, no, wait a minute. That wouldn't be better. No. That would be bad.
I'll tell you what. I'm just going to move the camera.
Here you go.
There we go.
Access cable works better.
There we go.
Hi, guys.
That works. That'll work for you.
See ya. Hi.
All right.
That's right.
Peter O'Connell, everybody.
There's K-Mer. Now you know. Look at this picture.
Yeah.
Right.
I got it. Don't worry. I'm redropping it.
Let me just adjust the camera a little bit more.
There you go.
Where's...
Is this the seat Diane Merritt sat in?
It is, actually.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I still feel the vibe. Yes. Anyway.
Good stuff.
Now you've been in the voice business a long time. I actually
1982.
1982.
Yeah.
Almost as long as me.
Well, I'm not quite that old. Jeez.
That's true.
You worked with Moses, as I recall.
I did. I literally did. I was the voice of Moses.
That's right.
And the voice of God.
That's right.
Which really helps on a lot of radio spots. But anyway, now you've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
How did you drift into doing it at home?
Everyone else threw me out. I had no choice. Get out! No, basically it's something that evolved. When I started in radio, and pardon my laryngitis, which is great for a voiceover talent.
Oh, it sure is.
Long weekend of birthday parties for children, but the not doing them, having them for my kids. I don't actually work birthday parties anymore. But basically, the way it worked was I was doing, when I came out of radio, I got involved in video production, and I owned a video production company for 6 or 7 years, and just kept going through their clients would want me to do work for them. And I would obviously do work for them. And then I got spots and occasional work like that. But at that time, you couldn't buy equipment for under like $10,000-$20,000. I mean, it was pretty, crazy expensive. And I went, no, thanks. And then, but I kept working with studios and not as much regional stuff or out of state stuff. It was more local stuff. And then some stuff would be done locally and get pushed out elsewhere. But then with the advent of computers and audio technology in the past 7 years, probably 10 years.
10 years.
10 years or so. It just blew up, and it was easy to go from there. And then the business grew exponentially. So fortunately, I had a good pedigree. I had a good experience, and it worked out very well for me. So I was very fortunate.
Yeah. So now you're doing you're consulting with other voice actors. You're teaching. You're coaching.
Oh, not a coach. I will never call myself a coach, but
okay.
I call myself a voiceover consigliere. Because he is exactly right. You never know when you find the horse head, but I'm probably responsible for it. No, because there are a lot of good coaches out there. There's the Fraleys of the world. There's Reese Tobiases of the world, et cetera. Those folks come to you with syllabuses, and they know what they're doing, and they have everything worked out. When I do one-on-one consulting for folks, voiceover talent specifically, based on what their needs are, and that's what I started the voiceover workshop, which was about 2 years ago. Because I really got tired of people calling me up and asking me for free advice.
Sounds real familiar.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm losing time here. This is not smart. So I decided, well, let's see if they'll pay for it. And they do, which is great. So, but I work one-on-one. I don't do group sessions. There are a lot of folks who are much more qualified in the coaching area. But when people work with me in the voiceover workshop, they get to pick the topics, anything from performance to business management to marketing and everything in between having to do with voiceover performance. And I go over it. And a lot of that also came from when I wrote the voiceover entrance exam a few years ago, which was caused by another series of calls of help me, help me, help me. And I knew these people really shouldn't be in voiceover. While there's some of the people should be in voiceover, some of them shouldn't. So I wrote a book and said, you need to be honest with yourself. If you're good enough, you'll know. And if you're not good enough and people keep telling you you're not good enough, you should try something else.
Yeah, really. So, yeah. I've taken that test. I've gotten 100 every time.
Oh, good. Well, but it's self-graded.
That's why I keep getting 100. Interesting to note.
Actually, somebody asked, how much does it cost, Peter?
Oh, you don't have that much money. No, I'm kidding. No, I work with 2 hours. Somebody works with me for 2 hours. It's $200. So it's a 2-hour session, and we go over everything. I do it by Skype if you like, or if you're in the Western New York area. Some people come in. I've had people come in from Rochester and Syracuse, and some up from northern Pennsylvania to come up to Buffalo. So, and it's a one-time off. You can work with me for a long time, and I have a lot of those clients as well. Or you just need to work for one session. We can do that too. And you guys and the audience picks the syllabus. The client picks the syllabus, mm-hmm. and we work on just that. And I take them through and give them everything that I know. So
that's fantastic. And what is the general website where they would most likely be able to find more information about that?
That would be voworkshop.com, which was another thing that amazed me when I named the thing. I should call it Voiceover Workshop. Oh, that domain's probably been taken. I went to directnick.com. VO Workshop has not been taken. So VO Workshop it was. Book that mother right away.
Fantastic.
So voworkshop.com, which is tied in with audioo'connell.com, mm-hmm. or you can just give me a call at audioo'connell.com. I'm the same guy, so it works out fine.
Any time of the day, middle of the night?
No, not so much. No, don't do that. Small children, don't do that. Don't wake the sleeping babies.
Me too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Ella knows. Don't wake up.
Yeah, no, my kids keep me up.
That's right. Small kids, small problems. Big kids,
Yeah,
big problems.
that's right. You've been getting bigger all the time.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, you also have another business. You're also in the public relations business. Or?
No, marketing.
Marketing.
I've had O'Connell.
Same thing.
That's for sure. No, it's a part of it. I've had O'Connell Marketing since 1995, which is, I think, ocmarketing.net or ocmktg.net.
It's probably all of them.
All of them. Yeah, I've been doing that since 1995. And that business was started, I wrote sales and marketing plans for businesses $5 million and less. And so when we were at FAFCON a couple of weeks ago down in Hershey, our friend Doug Turkel did a great presentation on advertising. And I just, because he asked me to participate a little bit in the presentation, I said to everybody, I said, would you mind telling me, by show of hands, how many people here have a written marketing plan? And I don't know if you were in that one, if that's
no. We were doing eWebs at the time.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? You were doing eWebs at the time because I remember the applause. I'm like, wait a minute, that wasn't for us. But there was like crickets as far as who has actually written a marketing plan for their business.
I did.
Okay, see, there you go. But then that's why you're having some success.
Really?
And some folks are having success without it. But it's such a simple document, you know. So, but it's about putting it together and it's about executing it, and that's where the rubber meets the road with my marketing company. So,
yeah, I mean, how much could you attribute your background in business to the success of your career now? I mean,
probably.
Lot,
I mean,
right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, because, you know, it is about, well, voiceover is a business, and talk about the voiceover entrance exam. That's what everybody forgets. They like the performance part of it. You know, the glamour of being behind a microphone and pretending you're Don Pardo. And like, no, wait a minute. You're going to do that about 10% of your time. The rest of it's going to be developing the business for it. You're going to have to create, clients and repeat business and introduce yourself and explain yourself to half of your clients. You do what again? I mean, it's all the stuff we go through all the time as voiceover talents, but new folks don't quite understand that as well. And people who've never owned a business before, that's a whole nother ball of wax. I mean, beyond marketing plans is the easiest thing you do when you start up a business. And
we have a lot of people who are getting into the voice business. Perhaps they've been outplaced. Mm-hmm. And perhaps they've been working for other people all their lives, and suddenly they have the chance to be independent. If you don't have a business plan, you're in big doo-doo. Mm-hmm. Now, I remember on our 10th anniversary, and my wife, and I we figured, well, we'll just go to Niagara Falls, and we'll have a nice anniversary. But we're also going to take a legal pad, and we're going to plan out the next 5 years.
How romantic!
Oh,
that's lovely. Hi, honey.
Yeah,
that's
I've
hot.
got champagne, I've got a fire brewing, and I've got a legal pad.
She was the one taking the notes, though.
I bet she was.
Oh, I bet she was.
Yeah.
I bet it was. No question about that.
But let me tell you something. That was probably, aside from the rest of the weekend, which was wonderful.
Sure.
We were able to plan out very succinctly the next 5 years, professionally, what we were going to do. And we both achieved that which we wanted. And that's a lot of what you're seeing right now, a lot of what I've been able to accomplish. It was like, I know how many clients I want to get. I know how I'm going to try and get them, what I'm going to specialize in. And we continue to refine it. I mean, we go back and we revisit it. Okay, now what can I do now? And, the home studio master is a whole business in itself.
Yep. And
we had a plan on that. And it's essential to plan properly. So
Yes.
I'm glad that you're showing people how to do this, or at least telling them to.
Well,
Do you instruct them on how to go about it at all?
Oh, yes, I do. That's part of the voice. Well, again, it's part of the voiceover workshop. If somebody wants to talk just about marketing, then I take them through the whole marketing kit and caboodle and how you do that and how you budget for that and how there's lots of free things you can do in the world that you don't have to pay for. There's certainly value to spending some money on marketing, but don't have to pay for everything.
Oh, yeah.
But budgeting it as part of what Dan is talking about and what George has done for his business and Eldorado Recording is to say, we've got it. We just can't decide one day, we need to have pens with a logo on it. Why? What's the point of it? There may be some reason for it if you're going to start doing a lot of trade shows, et cetera, but what is it you need to do that for? Or,
Right.
your local business paper is giving you this great program to do advertising and spend $1,500 on advertising in your business journal. Is it worthwhile?
Yeah,
and the answer may be yes or maybe no. I don't know. I mean, but you got to think about it and plan it out. That's the value of planning.
Yeah. Of course, I have the Merit Media Productions.
Yes, but so
stopwatch.
do I. And but that's because we're co-founders of the Diane Merritt fan club. So
Actually, there's a question from the chat room. That's good for Peter, maybe, and maybe it's not too detailed. How much of your yearly budget should be used for marketing and advertising? Says Susan Bernard.
Hello, Susan. How are you? We haven't seen you since Atlanta. And
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Exactly. Well, how much of your budget is dependent upon some of your goals. So in the old days, my answer should be 10 or 15%. But it may not be. It depends on what your objectives are, and that's part of the business planning and part of the marketing plan. So I'm not trying to not give you an answer, but to just throw out a number out there would to mislead you, and I don't want to do that either. So
I'm sure it varies as you go through as your business progresses. That number is going to shrink or grow, right?
Yeah, it is, especially on what your objectives are. In other words, if one of your, let's say hypothetically, one of your goals is to become a radio station imaging voice, and there's just a few thousand out there, but equally as many are radio stations. So if you're going to market to radio stations, you can do phone calls, you can do letters, you can do direct mail postcards, and you've got to figure out which one of those you can afford to do, which one of those is going to be the most effective, or what mix of those is going to be able to work for you. Mm-hmm. That's what you have to look at with every marketing objective and execution that you want to do. What's going to be of value to you, and how is it going to work for your business? And from there, then you're going to budget if you're going to do the printing on your laser printer, or if you're going to go to a printer. Two very different costs there. Postage involved in that. What you're going to say, how many inks, all the colors of ink. I mean, that stuff can start getting expensive when you go to professional printing. So, I mean, that's just one really quick example of how you just can't say what the percentage is. It can be, could be 2% for Dan, it could be 15% for me, and both could be right. So
yeah,
go ahead, George.
No, I was going to say, I think in my experience, my brief experience, it seems like the bigger the company, the bigger the percentage of their budget they seem to put in marketing. Like once they have a brand they're trying to maintain.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that true, or is that totally?
It depends on the industry. I mean, and I hate to keep going back to it depends.
Yeah.
But if you are, if you're Apple products or, if you're Apple sauce, two different marketing budgets.
Yeah.
And it depends on where you say, bigger companies, need to keep their brand out there. To what audience? If they are a huge widget company, they don't want to market to Dan and I, so they're not going to spend a huge marketing budget going public in their marketing. They're going to do some very targeted and industry-specific marketing that may actually, in the long run, be cheaper than it would be for a nationally consumer-driven company.
Makes sense.
Business-to-business marketing company is going to, in some cases, spend more because maybe they have to do a ginormous trade show like CES, in which people spend millions of dollars in all from trade booths to client entertaining to marketing letters and pens.
Strippers.
Exactly. I mean, so it really depends.
Absolutely. Dan, sorry, go ahead. I trumped on you.
I was going to get into talking because I know you talk about social media, and and when everybody's talking about social media, it became very clear to me. We were talking to James Allberger and Penny Absher last week. We were talking about voice in the community and stuff like that. Social networking is part of it, but networking in general seems to be a much bigger piece of moving your career on than I think most people realize, especially in the voice business. It was like, well, we're all competition. I haven't found that to be the case. What has
No.
been your experience with that?
Well, there's 3 questions there. I'll try and answer them in order.
Okay.
The first thing is you're absolutely correct about the networking and how social networking ties in. Social networking is a component of your marketing plan. You have to determine how and where. Talking to your buds about, boy, wasn't that a great football game in the voiceover world is great. But it doesn't necessarily make for decent social marketing as far as making sure advertising agencies or video production companies find this terribly interesting. And you're never sure if that part of your audience, whether it be generally in the video production world, for example, or narrowly in just video production in the state of Texas, is actually using that kind of social marketing. So you have to kind of use that. And then I forgot the second part. What was the second part after that?
About networking is important.
Yeah, that's right. Networking is important. Beyond that, there's the interpersonal networking. For example, you and I know of a local group called the Amherst Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, we do.
Amherst, New York, which is one of the more successful chambers of commerce because the suburban area has a lot more business when you look at it, and successful higher end business than actually the downtown corridor, which you think for a big city like Buffalo, which is still a relatively top 50 market, would have. So I joined, for example, talk about your personal in-person networking. I think we talked about this once, the Amherst Chamber of Commerce, to find that after 2 years of getting involved in the Amherst Chamber, going to events, serving on boards, becoming an active part in it, I never got any business out of it. I never was able to make a connection with anybody because at the end of the day, they didn't understand voiceover. It wasn't a part of their business, so they didn't see a connection. So I've since not stayed a member there. It's nothing against the chamber. The chamber is a great organization, but when it comes to networking, you've got to find the right group. My friend Mary McKittrick up in Boston loves the story I told of bagel marketing, wherein there is a bagel shop in town where I go for breakfast on occasion and would go there very often before kids, BK before kids. And go there in the morning and see a lot of business people in there and just chat, and business would develop from that because that was in-person networking. I did it because I wanted to get out of my house and out of my studio and be around people for at least a little part of the day, because sometimes you get stuck in basements or you get stuck inside offices and you don't see people. But the secondary outcome that came from that was I got to meet business people. They got to see me in a social setting. It was comfortable to talk and conversations happen. And that's where networking is of value. So you really, to your point, you have to decide and determine, take some risks with your networking, whether you go out to area events or, industry things for advertising or for marketing or video, or whatever. To see if it works for you. Try it a couple times. You probably got to give it at least 3 or 4 different events to go to see if it's going to work for you, and then make a decision. Don't be afraid to cut bait and say, this isn't working for me. I don't think it is. As long as you're giving it, you're really getting involved, and givers gain. It's not just talking about people. It's not just talking to people about how great you are. There has to be interaction. You have to ask about people. You have to give them the insight to say, tell me about your business, and listen. For the love of God, listen, because not only is it polite and they'll be willing to listen to you, but they also may throw out a couple nuggets where you can go, I might have a solution for that, either through my business or through my network. And if you show support for other people's businesses in networking situations where you're offering them help, even if it has no financial benefit for you, they will remember you, and it will pay off in the long run. You're paying it forward.
All right. Absolutely. Well, Larry Davis, you missed out. But Peter gave us some great advice here.
Thanks,
Poor
Peter.
substitute. Looking for Larry next time.
Yes, I can't tell he's on, but this was actually incredibly valuable. and
It
I'm
was.
sure
Thank you, Peter.
Don't sound so surprised.
I'm
Kidding.
not surprised. That's why you were only number 2 and not number 5 on the
Thank God.
on the depth chart here. But anyway,
We have one of those.
yeah. Again, now you have the graphic there, George, of Peter's business there, and how can they get in touch with you
I did.
again?
It's right here.
Oh.
I put it right over his face.
Oh, did you? Thank you. Well,
Why don't you put it over your face?
that's
So
no,
then
I
we
can't.
for him.
Perfect.
I would if I could. I can't.
That's okay. For the voiceover workshop, it's voworkshop.com. If you'd like to catch me on the phone, it's Operators are standing by. I was looking over my phone. 716-572-1800. That number again. Never mind. I'm kidding. And so.
Yeah. This is kind of weird. As I'm looking into, at our picture of us here, get rid of the graphic there, George. The thing is that
please,
if we were going like this, it would look like we were two cosmonauts on the space in the space station, and we'd be just floating here, and our hair would be floating. It's pretty much what it looks like.
That's done.
We're not. That's right. We have gravity. Anyway, Pete, thanks for being with us tonight.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Anyway, we've got some bad audio of the week coming up in just a couple of minutes, and we'll get ready for that right after this.
Eldorado Recording Services.
Randy Thomas chiming in.
This is Alex Verdi.
Hi, this is Bill Ratner in Los Angeles.
Hi, this is Scott Rummel here in Yorba Linda, California.
Hi, my name is Rick Wasserman.
Hi, this is Tom Kane.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, my name is Zurich.
Hi, I'm Mary McKittrick.
Hi, I'm Peter McHugh.
I was turned on to George by none other than Don LaFontaine, who always swore by his health.
George is absolutely awesome.
ISDN, Source Connect, Phone Patch, FTP, you name it, George has set it up.
It's really the best thing I've ever done for myself. I feel free, safe, fearless, like anything is possible in here.
Unless you like to look for opportunities to waste time, call George.
And he did all of that, long distance over the phone and the internet.
I'm very happy with George, and I cherish
I've got my travel kit, I got my Source Connect, I've got it all going on, thanks to you.
Thanks, George. You make it easy.
And we're back here at East West Audio Body Shop. Thanks again to Peter O'Connell for talking to us a little bit about marketing. And this is, I think we need to really talk more about industry stuff on the show as far as the business of voiceover. I mean, our prime thing is home voiceover studios, but with a home voiceover studio comes all that business stuff. So we really need to know that. Yeah. And when it comes to knowing what you need in a home studio, there's a bunch of places you can go, but the best one, the place where someone has made some wise choices for you, is our good friend Harlan Hogan and voiceoveressentials.com, where he's got some products that he has personally endorsed and personally created, like the VO1A microphone, which we've been recommending to people because at the great price point, it's a great microphone. And, of course, the Portabooth Pro and the Portabooth Pro 2, which will be coming out soon. Apparently, it's still a little slow in shipping.
I'll sit down.
It's the shingles. It's been affecting the brain a little bit. But they're going to get it in. It's supposed to be an improvement over the first one, which was really good. But he's also got some other cool stuff. I mean, he's got
this is the career resources page I have up here right now.
Oh, very good. Yeah. I mean, he's got he's got pop filters. He's got the microphones. He has that voiceover hat, which everybody wants. Mine, I played golf in it once and it was, but he's got some other microphones there. Some
it's not
great
about
books.
Just gadgets too. I mean, he's got the entertainer's secret throat spray. Say that 5 times fast.
What the heck is wrong with you guys?
It's dry in our
professionals.
Respective studio. Yes, you can tell.
There's so many good resources available on here. It's not just about the toys. Some of it's about the education.
Yeah, great books in here. Advanced voiceover career strategies, and of course his great book, Voice Actor's Guide to Recording at Home and on the Road. Mm-hmm. So go over to voiceoveressentials.com, check out what they've got over there, because chances are, if you need it, he probably has it.
That's right.
And
thank you, Harlan.
Yeah. Oh, always a thank you to Harlan for supporting us here at East West Audio Body Shop. Also, it's now time for Bad Audio of the Week. Now, hopefully you can hear this one. Now, George and I discussed this one earlier in the week, and he sent this to me, and I'm like, oh, I hear what the problem is. But let's see if they can hear this. So
this one, I think it's pretty obvious. So let's see what you guys think.
Now relief sets in faster than ever, in less than 10 minutes. Why do we advance aspirin? Because when it comes to pain, relief can't come fast enough. That's why. New Bayer Advanced Aspirin. Advanced relief for everyday pain.
Yeah.
Oh boy, you need some aspirin after that one. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, you've got now. Was that an electronically induced reverb on that, or an echo?
It sounded very much like that was all a post effects. That very likely that I'm not going to assume that the talent that was recording that actually did it, because maybe
or is listening.
But it's a misguided thing to think that adding in effects is going to be something that's going to wow your prospective client.
Absolutely. the thing is that they're never going to hire you unless that's your business. They're not going to hire you for your production capability.
No.
They're hiring you for your voice. Now, if you get an audition that calls for something, maybe it calls for adding music, maybe it says, there'll be an echo behind your voice, that little voice in your head should say, maybe on this particular audition, I'll do this because it'll make it a little bit different from everybody else who's going to do the same read and not do anything like that.
Right.
Once in a great while. Every time I've done that, when that little voice in my head's gone off saying, add the music or something along those lines, I do. And so it's usually been a very successful strategy, but only when the still small voice tells you to do so.
That's something that comes with experience, knowing when to do that, when it's okay to do that.
That's right.
That's not for everybody. It's certainly not the first impression you necessarily want to give if they're not expecting that from you. If
exactly.
they're expecting your production skills,
give it to them.
Give it to them. Go for it. Throw everything you got at it. If you think you know what you're doing, what the heck?
Yeah, but 90% of the people who I see who watch our show, probably less than that, all they want is raw voice. A lot of you are learning how to run your home studios, how to record. The commercial production side of it and adding other elements is a whole nother science that you can learn, and you may have a very great talent for it, but you have to learn how to do it right, because if you do it wrong, it sounds like that.
Yeah, it's all it's going to do is distract away from your voice. When I listened to that, it sounded like if you cut through all the slathered layers of effects, it sounded like she had a pretty clean recording in there.
Right.
Like fidelity was very good. It sounded like it was low noise. So it sounded like a lot of things were done right. And then they laid all that stuff on top. And it just,
yeah. Now, was that from a workshop?
I believe that came to us from via a workout group someplace. Hopefully she gets some feedback from the workout group participants and, is redirected. And like I said, I'm not going to assume that she did that. She might have had somebody help her that might have been a musician or been, some other kind of a producer and thought, oh yeah, you've got to give it everything. You got to make it sound cool. Not understanding the voiceover industry. So,
it's interesting to note that I've been getting more work with my narration demo, which is strictly dry voice, than with a highly produced demo. Probably a good topic of conversation. Perhaps we need to get a good demo producer on the show some night.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Discuss that. So, and we know a bunch.
We certainly know.
Of course, we don't want to pick favorites because they're all pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and we won't say who the bad ones are.
Yes, we will.
No, we won't. Anyway, well, what else were you going to do on a Sunday night? Was there baseball on tonight? Who cares? If you're in New York or Boston, you don't really care anyway. So,
Philly. Is the Phillies still in it? I don't watch sports.
No.
Philly's gone too. So,
okay.
Philadelphia. How about Texas? What's going on? We got people from all over. What about Vancouver? Anyway, I don't think they must have a baseball team in Vancouver.
As long as they have a hockey stick, they probably do.
Probably do. Yeah. Anyway, our thanks to our guest tonight, Peter O'Connell, for enlightening us on some good business practices in voiceover. And thanks to you, George, for holding down the fort with the Hydra there out in Santa Monica.
My pleasure.
We're going to what you do. It's, I think if people are really interested in how we do this show, perhaps we need to do a little bit of a webinar on that. So, if you're really interested, we'll try and come up with that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
I'm George Whittam out here in the West.
And together we are East West Audio Body Shop. Have yourself a great week. We'll see you next Sunday, 9 o'clock here in the East.
6 p.m. out here on the West.
I didn't want to step on your line. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you next time here in East West Audio Body.